Good morning, folks. Welcome back to Markelly Farm. Beautiful, cool morning this morning here in Nebraska. The sun's not quite peeking through the clouds, so it's going to make for a nice, cool day to work on. We're going to do a shop project here out in the shop. So thanks for hanging out with us. Let's get her started. So today's the day. We're going to work on these pallet forks here that we picked up for my friends in Tennessee, Dave and Steph. We're going to get this to them here pretty soon. So we need to get this put together the way they need it for their tractor. If you remember, if you've been following the channel, they have a John Deere like our tractor, a 3 Series. And this pallet forks were set up for pin attachment, and we need to convert this to John Deere quick attach. So that's what we're going to do today. We need to go get our tractor with our pallet forks. We'll come over here and we'll use it to help move this thing around. We need to work. I want to work in this area of the shop in here because I want to get inside the door because the wind's blowing today. And if you know about MIG welding, you can't be welding in the wind because the wind blows your shielding gases away and screws your welds up. So gonna have to move our post hole digger out of the way. We'll just move it over there where the pallet forks were, and then I'll move our wheel weights from our cub out of the way, and that way we can get in here. We're going to use our pallet forks here for a little work table briefly because it's no fun working on the ground. First thing we're going to do is we're going to remove our forks to make these a little easier to work on. That way we're just dealing with the frame. And when we transport this anyway, it's going to have to be taken apart. So we'll just leave the forks off. Now this set of pallet forks has what's called floating forks. The frame is fixed fast to your tractor, and these forks will actually rotate on this bar here. So no matter what angle your frame's at, your forks are still going to be riding along the ground, and you don't have to be so critical. And so you can see somebody's come in here and added this chain to keep their forks from floating around so much. So it keeps the fork kind of real close to the frame there, and brings the fork back with the frame if you tilt down. So we got to remove these chains first. Next thing we have to do is we pull the cotter pin out of one side of these pins so we can pull the pin out, which will release the fork. Well, I just figured out that this pin can't come far enough this way to let our fork off, because there's this little socket here for an optional bale spear, and our friends aren't going to run cattle or anything like that, or you have to move hay bales around. But even if they do, they can do it with the forks. So this spear thing here is really not necessary, so we're just going to cut it off. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to unbolt these big heavy brackets off of this frame. That'll be good material we can use for something else later. Got a couple nice bolts and some tractor bushings with washers and stuff. We'll put those in our hardware supply. All right, our Ryobi 1/2-inch impact made short work of that. Now we have some nice U-bolts to put in our hardware stash. We've got some nice heavy angle for future projects. Always save this stuff, folks. I always find uses for it. Now this attachment point here was for if you wanted to use this on the rear of your tractor, you could have hooked it up to your 3-point hitch as well in the back. And I was going to cut this bracket completely out, but I have this hook left over from another project, another thing I've saved. So we're going to put this hook in here, and then that will give them a nice lifting point in the middle of these pallet forks if they ever need to lift something in the center of them. There we go, fit like a champ, and it rotates back far enough so when you've got a load on the pallet or on the forks, it'll push back if it's flush back here against the frame. Well, now we've got a clean frame to work with. Let's get out our new brackets, set them on here, and see what we need to do next. So here is our John Deere quick attach brackets that we purchased. They're weld-on brackets, really nice quality. Got them on Amazon. I think they're $80 for the pair, somewhere in there. So these are the same brackets that you see here. They involve this hook that goes over the top of the loader frame on both sides. And then you have a linch pin that goes through on this pin that comes through this hole here. You can see this is my John Deere quick attach to skid steer adapter. This is skid steer right here, this portion, skid steer mount, and these are the pins that lock it. So I can do John Deere quick attach or skid steer with this bracket here. I bought this bracket with the tractor. When I purchased it, they included it into the financing, so didn't have to pay out of pocket for that. It was nice. Makes it very versatile. versatile because there's so many skid steer attachments around. You can get stuff pretty cheap if you can go either way. So we figured out that's 43 and like 5/8 inches wide. So we measured to the center here, made our same measurement up there. Now the only thing I'm doing here, I'm not going to weld this down yet because these pins here have to be spot on. There's a little play in the top hooks where you can move around, but these pins have to go through that hole right there. So we've got this thing squared up, and I'm just using this layout here. We came through with the square and made sure that we were square on the frame. So now all I'm going to do now is mark where these rest, so I can take the paint off the loader frame, and I'll take the paint off of these brackets and prepare them to weld on. But when I go to put them on, what I'm going to do is I'll take my pallet forks off. We'll set this frame on something out here, and we'll put these brackets in my loader frame, and then we'll bring the loader frame in and set it on top of here. That way we know these pins are in the right spot on. Now these lower pins are for a larger John Deere quick attach, and these go in kind of an angle like this, whereas small ones come in from the top. But that's how we'll place it. We'll actually use the tractor. So let's clean this paint up and the powder coating on these brackets, and then we can get our welder out and get ready to weld this up. You can see we have our marks on the frame and on the back side of our brackets. So what we'll do, I missed a mark here. We'll make that one. We'll come in, we'll sand probably inch or so on either side of these lines, and that'll give us some bare metal so we can weld. The welder has a hard time penetrating. The paint will pop and spatter, so we want to make sure we have a good clean surfaces. So we'll clean them up. There we are. We got our brackets all sanded up. We even sanded the edges because there's going to be a weld here as well. We'll have a weld here, here, and here because this is a rolled edge. We made sure we came back a little ways because there'll be a weld back here underneath as well. So we're ready to go. We'll get this thing set inside the shop door here. We'll take our pallet forks off the tractor. We'll put our brackets on the tractor. We'll get this thing ready to weld. You can see on the top of our brackets, they move side to side. So when we weld them on the frame, we'll make sure we're right in the middle. So we have a little bit of play, about a 1/4 inch on each side. Remember that weight bench we bought at Junk Jaunt? We're using that as our little welding bench here. So we've got our loader frame on our backstop here, making sure our fork pins are on the top because that's where they go. We don't want to make this thing upside down. Of course, the headache rack is on the top as well, so it's easy. So now we'll knock this frame around. We'll measure here and everywhere to make sure we're perfectly center. And then we'll get these things tacked on really well. And then at that point, we can take the tractor off, get it out of the shop. We can close the door. That way we don't get any wind in here when we're welding, because up here by the door, I can still feel a little breeze. So let's get her centered. Okay, we are spot on. Now, once we were really close, we come down here and we look at the gap around this pin. We make sure we got the same gap all the way around. So it sits right in the middle where it's supposed to be. And then we come up here and make sure the top of the bracket is centered. Looks like we're there now. We'll check these measurements here, of course, too. Same thing over here. Make sure we have the same distance all the way around that pin. So everything's down solid and flat. We have no gaps anywhere. So we can get some good tacks on this thing now. What do you guys think of my new welding shirt? I think it makes me look like I'm working on a prison farm. Okay, our brackets are tacked on there super good. The only place we couldn't get is this here. But now that the loader frame's off, we can start here, get a good bead there. We'll weld this thing all the way around. As usual, we'll do opposing welds. If I do this one here, I'll go do the one on the other side, and so on and so on. And then once we get this top side welded, or the back side actually, we'll flip it over and we'll weld the other side. All right, got her welded. Had 8 welds here on the back side. Now if you're new to welding, let's do a little tutorial here. Whenever we're doing a kind of a corner bead here, what I like to do is concentrate my heat on the base material right here, really burn it into that, and then bring the puddle up almost to the corner. So I come down and forward like this, and then up, burn that right up into that. It's kind of like a little mini vertical weld, and you'll get a lot better penetration in this piece. So just forward a little bit and then burn it up almost to the corner. You're watching your puddle, keeping your puddle even, and then just burn it right up into the corner. Now if you're going too fast, it's going to be all messed up, and if you're going too slow, you'll get a big blob. See, I was almost too slow here where you got kind of a slump here on the bottom. So I should have sped up just a little bit, but not a bad weld all in all. Now some of you hotshot welders are going to say, why are you welding farm equipment with a MIG welder? You should be going a lot heavier with stick welder. Well, my Miller machine here welds up to 3/8 of an inch stock, and that's what we're dealing with here. So we've got it set up as hot as it'll go. Now this welder will actually weld on 110 power also, but you can only go up to 3/16 when you're welding with 110. We've got a 220 outlet here in the shop. Now, some other people might also comment whenever you're attached to, say, a pickup or a tractor or something like that, you take the risk of frying your computer because of the voltage coming through the welder. However, if you localize your ground clamp, their ground clamp here, it's localized to where we're welding. Now, if we were to take the ground clamp and clamp it clear on the back of the tractor, causing the voltage to come all the way through the tractor, then we may have an issue. But as long as you're localized, you won't have a problem. I've been welding on equipment for years, even on pickups and stuff like that. So as long as you keep that in mind, you're good. All right, it's time to flip this thing over. I think I will take my flywheel off of my cherry picker there and use my cherry picker to flip this over. That's another project we've got to get back on. That'll be probably one of the next things we do. All right, I lied. I muscled it around. You guys need to yell at me in the comments so I don't do stuff like this. So we'll get the backside welded now. Okay, we got all 16 of our welds done. And in case you guys were wondering, we're running the Miller-Matic 215. I bought this welder about 4 years ago. It's no bigger than a suitcase. This is just a cart here that I bought at Harbor Freight. Shares the cart with our plasma. This welder, I did a lot of research. I love it. It's all automatic. You can adjust your material thickness right there, whatever material you're using. You can adjust your wire. Push of a button, you can adjust your process, because this welder will do MIG, TIG, you can do spool gun, and you can do stick welding, all with this same machine. And like I said earlier, if you're 220, you can go up to 3/8 material, but this welder will run on 110 outlet. And then it's got a dual gas port here in the back. There's one here that's plugged up. So if you're doing MIG and TIG, it'll automatically switch gases for you if you have the other bottle hooked up. And this cart from Harbor Freight actually has another gas bottle rack, so you can run 2 bottles on this cart here. But really love it. Highly recommend this welder. It runs like a dream. I will warn you, it's pretty pricey, but with as many projects as I do, it just doesn't make any sense to not have a MIG welder. Now, if you're out and about welding outside the shop, you don't necessarily need to carry that big gas bottle around with you. You can get flux core wire to where you don't need gas. It actually creates its own shielding gas, just like a stick would do, a stick welder. But I can't stand flux core wire. It makes a mess, just like stick welding. If you're going to use flux core, you might as well just stick weld stuff. Also running a 75-25 mix on our gas. It's 25% CO2 and 75% argon, and that makes for a lot cleaner weld. There's not as much spatter, but you can run it on just straight carbon dioxide. It's a lot cheaper. The 75-25 mix is a lot more expensive. What I think I'll do now, before I finish up, I'm going to go ahead and cut the rest of this bale spear pocket off of there, and kind of grind that off, sand it up a little bit, make it a little bit cleaner. All gone. Okay, folks, there it is. So we got a little cleanup to do, obviously, where we burnt through the powder coat. But we'll clean that off. And what do you say we make this thing John Deere green? We can spray it right here on our forks, because our forks could use a little more John Deere green too. Okay, we've got this whole thing wiped down with mineral spirits, which gets any of the dirt and the grease off of it. So let's shoot some paint. We've got the back all painted here. So we're going to let this dry just for a little bit, and then we'll put it over here on the concrete. We'll stand it up, and then we'll come in here with the tractor and pick it up, because this is all still powder coated here on the back, most of it. And then once we pick it up, we'll paint the other side, and then that'll be it. Is done. Looks so much better, John Deere green. And I don't know why I paint everybody else's stuff and don't paint mine. I got a whole slew of mismatched stuff I need to paint. But I like to make things look good for other people that I'm doing work for. Now, if you remember last time we talked about this pallet forks, I said we were going to narrow it because it's about 5 feet and he only needs about 4 feet. And we were going to try to make it lighter, because the heavier the implement, the less you can pick up. But after looking at the brackets and everything on it, I'd only be able to shorten it that much, just because of the loader frame bracket. So a little piece of square tubing that size, 4 pieces, would probably be less than 20 pounds. So I called my buddy Dave yesterday and said, hey, I'm just going to leave it 5 feet. And he said, oh, that's fine. And that does give them more range of positions for the fork, so that'll be okay. Now, I apologize, I didn't put the forks back on it so you could see it as a complete package, but I don't want to slide those forks on those shafts. The paint's not cured, and it'll just peel the paint right off of that. Not that it won't anyway, but when we transport it, we're going to have to pull the forks off anyway, so I'm just going to leave them off. So. It'll be fine. And now it's really complete. All right, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this project as much as I have. I love getting back out in the shop. And now that harvest is over, we can get some of our projects done that have been on hold. So I think it came out pretty good. So we hope you come back and see us here at Markelly Farm. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. See you on the next one.